My name's Chris Barnes with Cornerstone Honeybees. Going to do a couple of product reviews this year since it's honey extraction season. To put it in perspective, I am squarely a sideliner beekeeper. I run about 55 or 60 hives. You can see we just collected our honey supers. Already done about half of them. Some of them were deeps. I think we had, 10 or 15 deeps. And these are the mediums that we haven't done yet. I'm going to do two different reviews. The first one, Texas Bee Supply, or I should say the Bee Supply, Blake Shook's company out of Blue Ridge, Texas, recently modified their fume boards. Simple little modification, but it's pure genius. I can't believe that I hadn't thought of doing it myself. Basically what he did was he replaced the top with, I don't know if this shows up very well because it's kind of cloudy, with plexiglass. And then it's just foam on top. I did not buy their product. I saw his video and reverse engineered it, so sorry about that, Blake, but at least I'm giving you credit for a great idea. People will not necessarily build their own, so they'll buy your product anyway. Anyway, this is just felt that we got from Joanne's fabric store, and we put our favorite bee repellent fume in on this. I personally use Honeybee Gone. You can use whatever you like. But the genius of this is the plexiglass allows the sun to hit this and warm it up and makes the bees leave your honey supers much faster. We actually did most of our pulling of the hives when it was cloudy and rainy, and it still made somewhat of a difference. I think it warmed it up faster. Anyway, I just wanted to give props to Blake on a nice little ingenious modification to something that's been around a long time. So let me put this down. The other product I want to review is this Lyson decapping knife. It's a manual decapping knife, which is what most sideliners are going to want to use. If you're a hobbyist, you're probably going to stick with the good old-fashioned hot knife, or even a long serrated bread knife. It's not worth spending the money on the extra stuff that I have here. I bought this year because I had deeps to extract, and they simply don't make a bread knife or a hot knife that's long enough to go all the way across a deep. Plus, I've used these V-shaped knives before with the Honeybee Lab at Texas A&M, and they just speed up your decapping process quite a bit. There's another YouTube video that I watched on modifications. It's another review of the same product, and I took some of his modifications to heart, so I'm not going to repeat them. I'm just going to provide a link to it in the video description, in the description of this video. But his modifications are well heated. For example, on the outtake, where this is where the steam comes out, they sell this bucket down here. I'm going to use my foot. The steam melts the bucket really fast. Plus, you also get steam in your shop or your barn or wherever you're doing the extracting. So I actually just took an old garden hose that I happened to hit with my lawnmower. Rather than throwing it out, I just ran it out through the door. That way the steam goes outside the building and doesn't make it hot and humid in here, which you don't want humidity for your honey. The other thing that he mentioned is, I'm going to slide this out of the way. If you look down here, I don't know if you can see, I added a washer down here. And I played with it. I started out adding 3 washers because there's not these springs that are down here. Go ahead and show the springs. These springs are not long enough or strong enough to push the knife up all the way. this way. I'm going to set a frame on it so that you can see. They're not tall enough to push this all the way up without, can you see the gap right here? I don't know if it shows. The springs aren't tall enough to push it up high enough so that you want that knife to touch this board or the top frame of your top bar of your frame. Adding a couple of springs is really neat, or adding a couple of washers to your springs is really neat. The other thing that we did, and I'm going to turn off my extractor so we don't have the news here, or the sound here, is that in order to make these lay down all the way, you do have to take and cut off any extra propolis that the bees may have put on the sidebars, which does slow things down a little bit. The silver lining is that people actually will buy propolis, especially those that are into homeopathy help and stuff. So I've actually showed the pin. I've actually been saving the propolis for people that want it. I don't have a lot of people asking for it, but one or two will ask for it every now and then. This knife has the same problem that all knives would have. If you notice this particular frame that I have here, this cone is not built out as deeply as I wanted to. So this knife would not cut this side of the frame. So for that, I have to come over here and use a roller or a scratcher and decap this manually. I'll not do that. Everybody knows how to do that, so I'm not going to show that on the video. The other problem that I found, well, there's two problems that I found with this decapping knife. The first one is this tray that the frame sits on. This part of the decapping knife is nice and sturdy. It's nice and heavy, but this is pretty light and flimsy. And if you notice, it's pretty far out of square. And when you set it on here, you see, it's so out of square that it doesn't set flush. Now, when you put a frame on it and you put some weight on it, it does work. It's not a failure issue, but I wish they would have made this tray or the frame holder a little bit sturdier. The bigger issue that I had, and this is the same thing that the other guy reviewed, my decapping tank here is homemade knockoff of a Maxant tank. I took and had a metal shop create it from the exact specifications of Maxant decapping tanks. Maxant is the gold standard for decapping tanks and even extractors and stuff like that. And if you notice, these legs don't fit square on here. And there's no way to really attach the knife to the tank. It's kind of a pain. I took some wood and just drilled some holes so that these feet would set in here. This is a nice temporary solution. The other video that I'm going to link, he actually bought a stainless steel metal table, like from a kitchen supply company, and used a cutoff wheel and cut a hole in it specifically for this to set on. I'm probably going to do the same thing, but I'm already in the middle of doing this, so that'll be for next year's project. The other thing is this decapping knife is so long that it doesn't leave me any room to put my frames after I run them. I don't have a giant extractor, but it does hold 9 frames at one time. And the whole point of having a decapping tub is so that while that's spinning, you can decap more frames, so that as soon as that's done, you don't have to wait. You just pull them out and you put your next set of frames in. It helps speed up the whole process. One of the things that a lot of new beekeepers don't quite understand is that the decapping tank is actually the best thing for speeding your honey process. I actually had the decapping tank long before I had the bigger extractor. Before, I was still using a manual 4-frame crank extractor, but the decapping tank sped things up much faster for me. Anyway, so that's the pros and cons of it. I am going to show you how this does work. I've got a couple of frames sitting over here that are ready to go. Oh, I'm going to cut back real quick and talk one more thing about the Fume Board. You see how many boxes we had here, right? Show a picture up on the window. That's the only bees. I don't know if it shows up on the window. Can you see the bees on the window?
Yeah.
That's all the bees we brought back into our room. I can live with that. That's not a whole lot of bees in here while we're extracting honey. I've seen some extracting rooms that there's almost as many bees as what you get out in the yard. So I'm not quite sure how those guys do that. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. I'm going to go ahead and start by doing exactly what I talked about a minute ago. Cutting off the propolis. And I figured out that it doesn't really matter whether you put the top bar on this side or that side. In fact, I'll probably flip it when I get ready to do the other side. Now this frame, part that I put down is built nice and thick, so this ought to come out pretty nice. I do go kind of slow because I want it to cut nice and clean. And it actually left a little bit, but that's okay. I had been, rather than running it, I go ahead and use my roller to get the little pieces that it didn't cut. Then we do the other side. And I'm sure that my fingers are supposed to be back here, that's what this is for, but I like holding the frame down better. I think it just gives me a little bit better control. I will mention that this knife blade does get very hot with the steam that comes across. I think I was holding it down too far there because it might have gouged it. Yeah, it gouged it, but that was my fault. It probably wouldn't have gouged it if I'd have flipped the other way then. Okay, I'm going to watch this video, see if I need to make any edits to it, and we'll just go from there.